right, Kristen. If you could only read in one format for the rest of your life, any book, well, all the books, what format would you choose? Only one.
Why do
Only
you
one.
have to ask me the
Audiobook,
hard questions?
ebook, paperback, hardcover. And I'm seeing paperback and hardcover as different.
They are different.
I do.
They are
think
very
so.
different. I have a child who refuses to pick up and read hardback. So,
She knows what she wants.
She does. And I love that you knew that it was my daughter. Paperback.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think, and it's so hard for me because I love audiobooks
I do
so
too.
much.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think I would lose something if I didn't have a physical copy. I'm going to say hardback.
Okay.
I probably would look back and be like, why did you say hardback when I'm 90 and have no eyesight or something? But
Well, they're very heavy
right.
too.
well, let's get this episode started. Hi, I'm Emily, author of the Xeris Galaxy Saga, among other things.
And I'm Kristen Crum, the author of the YA rom-com It Happened at Christmas, among other things.
We're excited to welcome you to The Margins, a podcast where we have candid conversations about the writing life, indie and traditional publishing, the book industry, and a ton more.
Ooh, we're so glad you're here.
Yes, welcome. Today's topic is something I think we could probably talk about for forever. But in our candid conversation topic, we are going to address author burnout. Dun,
Yes.
dun, dun. It's a lot. And I have what I said earlier was I have some controversial opinions about burnout. So are we ready to light the fires? No.
Yes,
they're really
let's light
probably
the
not
fires.
that controversial, but yeah, I think you were the one who came up with this topic. So what were your thought processes to come to this?
So, honestly, I have just talked to a lot of authors in the past few weeks who are struggling with burnout or struggling with, they're saying they're burnt out. They can't do this anymore. And really, and I'm sure that this is probably what you're going to get into as well. I mean, I feel like we both have maybe felt a little bit of that burnout. Mm-hmm. We were talking a little bit before we hit record and then realized, oh, wait.
We should probably just talk about this.
Yeah. Yes, but part of me wonders, though, was it actual burnout? Was it a procrastination technique? Was it fear? I personally think, now me looking back, I mean, it might have been a little bit of burnout, and mostly because I probably bit off more than I could chew and more than I needed to at the time. I mean, I was traveling with work. I was working full time. And I agreed to a project and ended up writing, I want to say 3-4 books in a span of 3 or 4 months. Mm-hmm. And I mean, given a couple of those were middle grade type books, but it was a lot. And then I came out on the other side of it and I had gotten into my head and just started wondering, am I a good writer? Am I, is this worth it? What's going on? But I also think too, I had a internal intuition that something about the project that I was working on wasn't working, but I didn't have anybody to talk through those with because of generally I talked to Emily, but because of the nature of the project, I didn't have anybody to walk me through those to even begin to see if I was on the right path. And I think that also led into burnout because it got into my head of just all of the negative Nancy. Sorry for any Nancy's out there. Negative Nancy in my head that was just kind of beating me down. And so I think, I'm not sure that if I had burnout or if I just had crippling imposter syndrome, maybe. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, yeah. And I look back to, because I mean, even, I think it was in our last episode, I had said that once I finished editing my third book, which was a tome, we're going to call it a tome, especially I edited it in a very short window of time. And that kind of led me to be dry.
I
feel like it's a bit burned out. I
don't know if we were burned out or if we were just tired.
And honestly, there might not be a difference. No.
There might not be.
There
Yeah.
is. Well, okay. So let me get to my controversial opinions here, and this might lead us to some conversation about it because I'm going to caveat this by saying I in no way am saying that you shouldn't rest when this happens, that you shouldn't take time away. I do have some practical tips that I can like give for when we are burned out. So don't hear that or hear me say this and like think, whatever. But my controversial opinion is that I think sometimes we have to push through burnout. And I know some people are like, oh, you might have gasped, you might have clutched your pearls and think, no, that's a terrible advice, Emilie. And it might be terrible advice. I just think that there are times, especially being a professional writer, that you can't afford the luxury to wait until you feel more inspired. And I know that burnout is more than that. So that's why I do say like I think there's different levels of this. And so for me, especially as a ghostwriter, this was about, 5+ years ago, because I was a ghostwriter for about 8 total years. There were times that if I did not finish a book, that meant I would not be able to pay my rent at the time. And so that means you sit your butt in the chair and you write 10,000 words a day for like several days in a row. Is that fun? Absolutely not. And I don't recommend it. And I'm not saying that you're always going to be in that situation if you think you're feeling burned out and you just have to go for it. So yeah, I get that. But sometimes I do think that we have to push through.
I was just going to say, and this might be part of your practical tips, but I think that we do need to be very mindful of what we are able to do. Mm-hmm. So we do need to make sure, like, even though we need to push through, yes, we 100% need to push through, but we also need to schedule in rest. I mean, we're not meant to go 24/7, 7 days a week, just, head to the grinding stone and just getting stuff done. There will be times for that, but that cannot be your consistent normal.
Right.
And then also know your limits. I think I shared this in the last episode. I realized as much as I want to be working on multiple projects and as much as my brain are thinking about multiple projects at once, like I really have to focus on just getting one project done. Mm-hmm. And knowing that, schedule that out. And, maybe that is, maybe that you can write 1,500 words a day. Do it 5 days a week. Don't do it 7 days a week. Put your buffers in there. You need to have people around you. You need to be sociable. I know we like to be introverted and don't like going. I work from home. I write from home. Like, I like being in my little cozy whatever. I had to go to a writer's conference and I was like, I'm a hobbit. If I leave, like, I miss my books and my chair and my garden. Like, I felt that in my core, but it's good for us. Mm-hmm. So anyway, sorry. Didn't mean to
No, because I think like, and this analogy may or may not help people to hear like what I'm trying to get at here, but I've been training for a half marathon. I like to do that every fall, and especially
she's crazy.
Yeah, I am crazy, and I especially dislike it in the summer because it's like our humidity here is like 95%, and it's also like 80 something degrees, which I despise. But I was having some shin pain this morning. I did an 8-mile run this morning, and I was just like, you know what? This could be bad. And I promise I'll bring this back to writing. And so I was thinking like, okay, I need to be really sensitive, and I really need to listen to my body. And if it gets worse, then I'm stopping, I'm walking home, whatever. And then when I started off on the run, I started to realize like maybe 5 minutes in, the pain was gone. I felt pretty good. And it kind of made me think, okay, so it wasn't actually a warning sign of like, oh no, Emilie's in danger of like being injured. It was more a sign of just like my muscles were sore. I needed to stretch more, whatever. And so for me, like I kind of compare that to burnout in the sense of like sometimes, and I'm sure that there's like levels of burnout as well. Sometimes you're just like depleted and there's nothing that you can give. And we'll talk about like ways that you can like refresh yourself in that situation. But sometimes it just means that you need to, like, especially if you have a deadline that you have to hit and you're feeling that burnout, sometimes it means like, okay, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to give myself a timer for 30 minutes and I'm going to write what I can. And sometimes that's like that, like first 5 minutes of running when you're just like, oh, the pain. And then you're kind of like, wait, it's gone. Where did it go? And then you hit the rest of your run and you feel pretty decent about it because that's what happened today. Yay. But also that means like for writers, then we hit our stride and we start to think like, okay, I do love the act of writing. Sometimes it's everything else that I don't like, or sometimes it's where I'm at in the story if I don't know where my plot is going, or there's like issues with my characters. Like that can, I think, lead to what you were going to probably say maybe soon after this, but I'm going to read your mind. Is that like, or maybe you mentioned it already, but that maybe it is some procrastination. Maybe it's something greater than just being like, oh, I'm just burned out on writing, if that makes sense.
Yes. Have you read The War of Art?
No, but I'm pretty sure I haven't.
Okay. So you need to read it. I'm currently reading it. It's a little dense in parts, but it's this idea that resistance is always around you. And so like you're talking about your shin splints and I'm like, no, that wasn't your body telling you that you're injured and you need to rest. That was resistance being like, there's a little pain. It's okay. It's okay if you just sit. If you don't eat, it's fine. You'll make it up tomorrow. But I see this daily in my writing. Like, okay, I'm going to write for 2 hours, from this time to this time. And all of a sudden I realize it is again 10:30 p.m. and I am might be procrastinating, scrolling on Instagram, seeing if Emily is also on Instagram so that we can talk back and forth about how we shouldn't be on Instagram. Like, procrastination.
To be
scrolling.
fair, I wasn't actually on Instagram.
Instagram, I have noticed, Instagram will alert you that people are on with that little like green square or green circle when it's not actually true, because it's also happened to my husband. And I'm like, wait, he's on? And then I'll like peek in and he's like sound asleep. So so it's an Instagram thing. It's they like whatever. But it's that resistance that is, it thinks that it's trying to protect you from rejection, from, the fear, from all of these things. But as professional writers, and the book kind of goes into this, as professional writers, like we have to realize you show up and you work, whether you feel like it or not, you do. Like if you are a professional, this is what you do. If you're an amateur, or if you just want this to be like, oh, this is a fun little thing I do on the side, who cares? Like, yes, you can wait for the muse to show up and light your way. But if you are wanting to be a professional writer, I mean, and I think both of us, like that is our end goal. Like you have to show up. You have to show up whether, I mean, if you were sick, or if you had a day job and you were sick or you didn't feel like going, you wouldn't just call in and be like, well, I feel like being a bum today, I'm not coming in. You wouldn't. You would go anyway and you would do it anyway. So,
well, and I think a good distinction too, for those who are listening, they're like, oh, maybe I just need to push through. And maybe you do, and maybe you don't. I think that to kind of like, I don't know, maybe even the playing field here. I'm not walking back what I said, because I do, and I've posted about this before, but like I do believe in hard work. And I think sometimes when things are hard, we tend to like pull back. We're like, oh, this is hard, I shouldn't be doing this. But sometimes like, dare I call it like a breakthrough or whatever, can be just on the other side of that. But to kind of think about your burnout as creatives, so like to compare it to your work analogy, we are harnessing like two very different things, right? We're harnessing hard work and like a diligence, but we're also harnessing creativity. I think where those two meet in the middle is where the magic kind of happens. And sometimes that looks like a lot of words really fast in those times when you're just like, oh man, I am so like on board and I'm like there and my brain is ready and engaged and I'm like, yeah. And then other times it's like, well, I got 1,000 words in and it took me 2 hours and it was like pulling teeth or whatever. But like there's the difference between those two things might be some inspiration, but I do think that both of those were still successful writing sessions. But like to get yourself to a point sometimes where maybe you have or you want to heal from burnout, or you're thinking that you're like on the edge of it. I do have a few things that I was thinking through, probably on my run this morning was one what I was doing, and I typed them into my phone because I was like, I'm gonna forget these. But I mean, one of the very first things is like talk with your friends. So like I would go to you, Kristen, if I am feeling burned out or I'm feeling something. I'm trying to figure out what is it that I'm feeling. I can talk to you. And like in the scenario of like when you were talking about like all the stuff that was going on previously during those books, like I think we had talked not specifically about those books, but like about things that were going on. And I think for me to look at you in that moment, I think it was a lot more about like all the things that were happening in your life that were overwhelming you, writing related things, that lent itself to this feeling of like being like depleted, burned out, whatever. And so like, first of all, like talk with your writing buddies to kind of like hone in on that, and like journal for yourself if that's helpful, whatever that looks like. And then also like, if you get the chance, you can ask for an extension. We're talking now at this point as like, if you're a professional writer, if you're an indie, maybe that's like me, but it was an accident having to like push back my editing date with my editor. Not because I was burned out, but because the book was twice as long as I thought it would be. But like, ask for those extensions. Now, this is where it gets like, if you're a professional author, it gets a little challenging if it's a traditional contract, especially if you're like mid-list and you really want to get another contract. You really want to make your publishers happy. So that's where you might need to push through despite the feelings, or whatever. But then another thing I thought of too, was that you might want to try to block your days. I've tried this. It doesn't really work for me greatly. I've tried so hard.
I love the concept.
But and that's the thing is I think it's a great concept. And I think like, and who knows if you're maybe not at the professional stage yet, or like us where you're fitting in your writing along with your other career things, the ability to do this it actually might be something you're already doing. I don't know. But basically is like giving yourself a few days of like a break in between. So like if you need to be writing 3 days a week, maybe that means you do like a Monday, Friday, Sunday. I don't know, something random or whatever, just to give yourself some breaks in between, if that's helpful. But yeah, what about you, Kristen? Do you have some tips?
I was going to say, and this, for those that feel like they are in burnout and they just feel like they are on that cliff and they don't know how they're going to hang on anymore and they're doubting themselves. If it is a season where you have like multiple deadlines that you're trying to get taken care of, if you're tried publish, you can't push them. Know that this is just a season. Know that it's a season and it will be over. This is not your life for the rest of your life. And also plan a break. I mean, just plan a breather where you can come back to the table and you can reassess, what needs to happen moving forward to keep going. And like for me with my burnout or just tiredness, I knew that coming up we had a family like Christmas vacation. I think we were going on a cruise. And I was like, okay, you know what, for these 2 weeks that we are gone, I'm not going to write, I'm not going to work, I'm not going to look at work email. That was a mistake. Like all of these things, like, but it was the breather that it's a step back. It's like just like a reset. If you can't afford that long of a period of time, and I was very privileged because I was in between like deadlines. So I was able to do that. Like maybe take a day, just take something for a breather. My other suggestion, and this one might be for those that aren't, it's probably good for people for burnout, especially if you can like look and figure this out. But if you're not in burnout, I would highly suggest that you do this, especially if you're wanting to be the professional level writer, is something I'm awful at, but do better than me. And that is boundaries. And that is boundaries with your writing. That is boundaries with your work. That is boundaries with your family. Like figure out the most important, okay, family is most important. And this is what Pages has thoughts as well.
Paige always has thoughts.
Paige says, in order to not be burnt
Pet a
out,
cat.
just hug me. Just hug me and love me, and you will feel better. Yeah. Boundaries with writing. Like, know that you cannot write 7 days a week. If that is 3 days a week, stick to your boundaries. Make sure that you don't let anything encroach on that writing time. I myself, I like to, everything that, in my mind, everything is like 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. Monday through Friday, I do my day job, and I also do my writing. My weekends are completely for my family and for my 1,000 animals that I have and my hundreds of gardens, and just decompressing from the week. And there are times when I'm under deadline, or when a client from my day job needs something that I might have to work over the weekend. But it's just like knowing, like, okay, I can do that this weekend, but if I do that this weekend, I can't do it next weekend too. I can't stack up all my weekends.
Yeah.
Just know that there's oh no, my baby kitty is, my baby is now. It's like,
he heard Paige's call, and they're
He
like
did,
communing.
he did. He's actually more
He's
so
also
like,
probably thinking like,
what is this on
yeah.
my cat tree? What is going on?
Well, and I think too, in conjunction with that, and this might be a more typical response to when people talk about burnout, but is to really like fill that well. And I know that it's always interesting to meet other writers who don't read, because I don't know how they do that. I mean, I understand it to some degree, but whatever that looks like for you, I found myself most inspired by watching movies that are really well done. Top Gun Maverick is like one example.
Yes.
So good.
Yes.
This just popped into my head. By listening to, and this is not a cheap plug for us, but by listening to podcasts about writing, because to hear other writers going through something similar to you, or talking about the things that they're inspired by or excited by, that really inspires me as well. And I kind of think, oh yeah, like I'm a writer. I do that too. Like, especially when people are talking about publishing or like their next book. And then I think, oh man, I have a next book, And then one more thing that I do is that it might be reading a book that I loved, or reading a book that people have recommended to me, to see that it really is as good as they thought that it was, and like really enjoying that. Those things can really inspire me.
I was just going to add, watching YouTube videos of other, generally it's other writers, WriterTube, AuthorTube. I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah.
Emily has a great one. This is me plugging Emily's channel. And there's a couple others that I just really like watching. And I also like watching author interviews, especially authors that I just love. Adrienne Young is one of them. I absolutely love all of her writing. And so, if I can see her, and sometimes I'll just go, and this might be creeper level of me, but sometimes I'll just go and like watch her. Like, she had I don't think it's up anymore, but she had like a Scrivener tutorial of how she sets up her Scrivener. And so like just watching that and seeing how she sets up for a new project, it would get me excited about, setting up for a new project. And then the second thing is good music. Sometimes you just need really good music. Neely Spencer is like, I have a playlist that is going on Spotify. I haven't really shared it yet. It's a private playlist, I think. But it's like so vibey, like everything that I want this book to feel. And I feel it when I listen to this playlist. And so that can also, I feel like, get you excited about a project.
Another thing that made me think of this too, I always say this, I always go out like to take a walk, right? Or take a run or whatever. But I think like I do it very intentionally, especially, for example, I have this book that I really need to write by the end of the year. And I was like, you know what? It'd be a great time to think about, I don't know, the plot to this book. So kind of asking myself these questions about like, okay, because while I don't know that I would classify what I feel right now as burnout, I feel tired and I feel kind of like uninspired. And I think a lot of that is just that I haven't let myself I haven't let myself plan out, and I haven't let myself decide what I'm working on next, because I think I realized that like what I did with my book 3 was really like almost 3 full books, depending on which author we're talking about for myself. Because my sweet romance books are a lot shorter, so that would be at least 3, maybe 4 of my sweet romance books all at once. And I really like front loaded my year with that. Yeah. And so anyways, taking a walk and like letting myself think about the things really got me excited to work on this next book. And it's funny because it is a Christmas book and it is currently so insanely hot here. But like thinking about, what could I have them do? Who are these characters? What is it that I want to like see happen between them? A lot of that, I wouldn't say it was going on a plot walk, but it ended up being that. And that has been really helpful to just kind of enjoy the process of creation without the immediate turnaround of having to write it right then. That can kind of help, so.
I love that you go on plot walks, and I've always wanted to go on a plot walk, and this might be a fun like episode. Like let's Emilie tell us how to do step by step a plot walk. I tried to do plot walks, and I go out on a walk, and my brain, I guess, is so ADHD that I'm just like, oh, well, the cows are out. Oh, a tree. Oh, look, there's a dead frog. Oh, poor thing. Oh, look, a smashed snake. What kind of snake was it? And I mean, I just like get back to the house. I'm like, oh, I forgot to think about my book. But yeah.
It is challenging to do sometimes, but I think I've kind of trained my mind. And so a lot of the times, like for a while, this is a book that I think it's a serial fiction that I'd started, but haven't like written yet, like fully written it. And I basically started at the beginning and I was like, okay, what happens if these 2 characters do this and then this and then this? Like, what would be next? And like, I just think through. And then sometimes I'll like start from the beginning to remind myself, because a lot of the times this happens when I'm running, if I'm walking, like, so when I was thinking about this Christmas plot, I actually pulled out and I was like huffing and puffing because it was like hot outside. I pulled out my voice memo and was like, I have to remember these few crucial things. And so I like left myself a voice memo, which is who knows if you can hear it.
This is generally when I leave you a Vox.
Yeah, something like that. Anything that helps.
Yeah. Planning stage is always my favorite. Like that.
True.
I mean, it always energizes me to plan. It's when it's like, okay, I've done all the planning. I mean, and because when I get stressed or stuck, I'm like, okay, I got this new plan that's going to like change the world. And you're like, yeah, didn't you just do that last week? And I'm like, oh yes. And that's more like goal setting and like calendar wise, but it's like the planning part is my favorite, but it's like
the execution.
The execution is so hard.
Well, and I think, and this is definitely for a future episode, I think that there's something, okay, I'm going to take a little tangent. I recently posted about this, but a lot of people say to me, like, I don't know how you do it all. And I do say very clearly that I don't. I do not do it all. But I think sometimes, and I'm not saying the difference between you and I at all, because I think we both have this in, varying different times in life. But there's a discipline that comes with like, okay, I just have to do this. I have to write this next thing. For me, that happens when I give myself hard deadlines because I've told people things. And so that is a great motivator for me. Unfortunately, I still wait till the last minute to do it because I am a procrastinator. But I find that like saying to a lot of people, I'm going to release this serialized fiction every Tuesday means that I've got to do it, even if that means I stay up late writing the next episode, aka 2 days ago, which is what I did.
Well, and I mean, I'm feeling that, like, and this about me. I have always said, I want the traditional contract because I need that hard deadline in order to get things done, and I don't get things done for myself. I'm getting better. I'm getting better. I will say that with the Substack, like there is part of me, like sometimes I'm like, oh, it's no big deal if I don't do it this week. It's totally fine. But I will say that I do have like a couple of people who have started backing me. And I'm not saying like everybody needs to back everybody, but I am saying that like it has made a world of difference in my head of like, okay, people are invested. People are invested in this story. They want to see what happens next. I have promised one every other episode, every other week. I need to get it out. So, I mean, people are getting back-to-back weeks this time because I did miss a week because I was out of town. And so I posted late. So they're getting another one this week just so that it's like on the same schedule. But, yeah, I mean, don't know where I was going with that. Totally completely lost how I was ending that. But yes.
Well, all that to say, sometimes, like, okay, we'll end it with this. The difference between being, and I'm not saying that you can, let's put it this way, you can be unpublished and still be someone who's like career author focused, right? So, but when we look at someone who's maybe in the midst of a career authorship, that's not the way to say it, but like they're living and working as an author, whether they do other things or not. I would say that's where both of us are, even if we're not to the point where our authoring can like support us full time or anything. There is going to be a bit of a difference between facing burnout then and then facing burnout as someone who is like pre-published. I don't think either is worse or better or anything. It just means that you might need to approach that burnout differently. If you have the luxury of being able to step back and take some time, do it. I think like a lot, and I know I was like this before I got published, like I just could not wait to be published. And so, you know, that's the goal. And so you just like go or whatever, but you don't realize how like beautiful and free it is before you have work out there, before you have readers that are asking for the next book, which is a beautiful, wonderful problem to have. Yeah. But it is something that like puts pressure and stress on someone. So if you have the luxury, take some time, do the things we said, have a break, do all of that. But if you don't have the luxury of time, give yourself those small breaks, give yourself like a weekend off, even if you're like, oh gosh, obviously don't put yourself into like a huge deficit of words if it's like really bad, but maybe you give yourself the morning off or something like that, or maybe you switch up your schedule, maybe you write at a coffee shop when you normally wouldn't, something just to like change things up. Have a conversation with your writing friends, listen to some podcasts, do something different to help re-inspire some of that. And remember, like Kristen said, it's not always going to be this way. Like there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and it just might mean that you need to structure some things a little differently if you can, or what life circumstances happen, and that's okay too.
The just sit and bask and think about how you will feel when that project is done and you're holding that book in your hands, and just chase that high. It is a high, guys, like you will never have, and just chase it. Remind yourself that that's how that feels, and just know that you're not going to feel like in this, like you're in this valley and you're down in the dumps. And
absolutely. Okay, I think it is now time for our publishing tip of the week. And this one is a fun one, and it's going to sound a little self-serving, but I promise you it's not. The thing I wanted to focus on very briefly today is, should an author have a like professional headshot or not? My vote is for yes. I think Kristen opposed to me.
I am not opposed. However, there are ways to go about it. I mean, obviously, if you can 100% hire a professional headshot person, I mean, it's just gonna be so much better. On the flip side, I mean, everybody has a smartphone. People are out there making movies on iPhones alone. Yeah, so I feel like, you have the capability to have, while if it's not professionally done, it can look professional. It's not just a like, hey guys. I work my day job. I work a lot. I work a lot with different authors. I see a lot of profile pictures and headshot photos. And guys, I mean, you need to look professional if you're going for the professional writer's route. You need to have that professional photo look. So whether you hire somebody to do it, which is highly recommended, or you just grab your kid or your best friend or your husband and like, hey, take a picture of me. Your face is your brand.
Absolutely. So here are my thoughts. I think first and foremost, it's not just because I'm a professional photographer that I recommend having a professional headshot, but I have also done headshots at conferences for like 10 years now. And so I know, because I know how expensive photography can be. I know that there are options. Now, I know not everybody goes to a conference, but there are options to do a shortened session. So for me, I offer, 5 polished photos at a really reasonable rate, I feel like. Very competitive, very affordable. Now, if that's not an option, some other things that you can do are look around your town. There might be somebody, like if you go to church, there might be somebody who's a burgeoning photographer at your church, or someone who would even do it at a discounted rate for you. Ask for a mini session, maybe even use a fall mini session or something that you're doing with your family, and ask if they could take a headshot. I have had that happen. It does feel a little weird, but at the same time, I understand if you really have a very tight budget and yet you're willing to spend a little bit of money for your family photography, it can't hurt to ask, and just make it clear that you respect the photographer's time, but just be like, hey, I'm working on this author thing on the side, and like I'm really trying to make it happen. Now, I know I'm not necessarily suggesting it, but I'm just saying like it has happened to me, and I've happily done it for people. But finally, if you cannot afford any type of professional photography, as Kristen was saying, there are a few tips that can make taking your photo a little bit better with your iPhone or whatever type of smartphone that you have. First and foremost, do not use a selfie. No, just don't do it. We can see your arm there. Now, you might be able to get away with a tripod stand for your phone that has like a clicker with it or something. That's totally fine. You can use portrait mode. Just be cautious of that. Make sure that your face is clear. There's no weird blurry stuff like on your hair or something. And then, please, for the love of all photography, make sure that there is like lovely natural light, not blaring at your face. You don't want your face in the sun, but maybe stand near a window, stand outside with light that is not directly overhead. So this is like a morning or an afternoon thing. I know I could keep going with the tips for photography. I do highly recommend as professional of a photo as possible, just because think of it this way. It's kind of like your first impression with your new readers, especially if your photo is on the back of a book cover. And you want them to really understand who you are, what you're willing to pay for, and what kind of face forward you're going to put, literally.
I will also say your headshot doesn't just have to be in the back of your book. It can be your social media profile pictures, which is very good because it gives a consistent brand. They can see you in the back of the book. They can go and search your name. I mean, especially if your name is something like Joe Smith and, there's 1,000 of them. Well, they will know because your profile pictures match. And then also, if you're on podcasts, if you're a podcast guest, they generally need a headshot for their podcasting graphics. And so having that professional photo done and ready to just be like, yes, here, you can just hand it off. And then, I could go into website designing. Yeah. You want your face on your website. It's great to have those professional photos done as well.
It's funny too, because I actually have not changed my photo, even though I've taken new headshots. We did them together actually. I haven't changed it because I wanted to finish out my series with the same photo. Now, that's a personal thing. You do not have to do that. I've totally seen big name authors change their photos in the middle of a series. This is just a personal thing that I like to do. I will say,
Emily, that my headshot that is on my website, I was pretty sure that was a selfie.
Is that the red chair one?
Oh, no. Take that back. I forgot about those. My sister took those. See? My sister took those. We went around town and I was very awkward because we were in my favorite coffee shop. Everybody knew me and I'm just sitting there getting my picture done.
I love it. No, that's good though. But yeah, and that's the thing. I try to update my website pretty frequently with new pictures. Again, it's something I do take them myself, so I definitely have a leg up on that. But
I change my headshot whenever I see Emily because she takes my headshot. Yes.
Very true. All right. So finally, sorry, we got a little long on that, but I get really passionate about photography. I should have known better. That is a short tip of the week. But we have a listener question. So yes, so this person asked for the best advice for someone looking at indie publishing. She's never, or I think it's a she, has never published and she's scared. I realize this is a very long answer. So we're going to have a very short answer, and then hopefully, actually in our next planned episode, or at least in the future of our next planned episodes, we're going to be talking about indie publishing, small press, traditional publishing, kind of as like a compare all type of situation. So first of all, wait for that episode.
Yeah, well,
Just kidding.
Just really quick, my gut reaction, my gut advice is do it scared. And second of all, a little insider information. You never are not afraid.
True. And then my slightly longer answer, but
I was trying to keep it short.
I know. Not gonna. But I mean, this goes for a lot of things. I get asked a lot of questions about Kickstarter. I get asked a lot of questions about design and things like that. Do your research. For someone who is interested in indie publishing, there's so many resources out there. So I understand the being scared, because it can feel overwhelming, because it's kind of well, where do I go?
Yeah.
But first of all, start off with what you can research online. I know Kindlepreneur is a great website that has a lot of information, and I trust them about indie publishing. We have talked about it previously on our podcast. I think I've talked about it on my podcast, Productivity in Prose, not poetry. I don't do poetry on that podcast. I have talked about it a little on that. And there will be, like we said, there will be another episode on that soon.
I also want to plug our Discord channel here. Emilie and I are pretty much open book. I mean, we love talking about anything writing relating. Both of us have indie published. If you are on the Discord, if you're not, just drop us somewhere. Let us know.
We'll have a link somewhere. Yes.
And, but I mean, you could always come over there and drop a question in. If Emilie and I, don't answer, or, we could answer something, but I don't know how many people we have in there right now. We have trad publisher, we have indie publisher. It's just a community where we're all helping each other. And so, if we don't have an answer, one of them could, swoop in and answer your question. And so, yeah, you don't have to go it alone. Find your community, find your people. They're more than happy to help along the way and help at least point you in the right direction if they don't know the answer.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Bye.